Hello, I'm Larry Johnson, and welcome to this episode of Countercurrents. We're going to close out the year with my buddy, my friend, Pepe Escobar. Enjoy. Okay, now the recording's underway. Well, so this will be the final. This will be the final Countercurrents broadcast for the year. So we end with the best. Actually, the ideal is I got to have you and Alistair combined.
Oh man, we have to do something together, the three of us, definitely.
Oh, but I did a show yesterday with Nima and Professor Moran,
nice.
and with Mohammed Morandi, and Morandi was wearing the shirt, the Hawaiian shirt I gave him when I was in Moscow. It was hilarious.
Excellent. Way to go.
Oh,
wow.
Hey, so let me cut to the chase here. I've been,
yes.
I've come to the conclusion there's not going to be any peace agreement whatsoever. This
you're absolutely 100% right. Yes.
Yeah, and let me give you my thinking, and then you react. Let's say that Donald Trump gives Vladimir Putin everything that Putin has laid out starting in June 14th of 2024. No matter, even if Donald Trump accepts all of that and says, okay, it's good, there is no political support in the United States for that. And I think the only deal that Russia could count on would be a ratified treaty, which means 66 members of the U.S. Senate would have to vote for it. Since that's never going to happen, I think this entire peace process is just a fruitless exercise. What do you think?
Absolutely, Larry. It is a kabuki. No question about that. And the people in Moscow, they know it's a kabuki. The Security Council know it's a kabuki. And certainly Putin himself knows it's a kabuki. But the Russians are excellent at playing along. They know exactly the situation in Washington and in the Beltway and all these very heavy, powerful currents there are against any sort of agreement, settlement, or whatever with Russia. They know about that. They know that Trump is relatively isolated, even within his own circle. They know that Witkoff and Kushner are not real negotiators, so they are basically it's a construction of narrative with these two guys playing, acting like they are negotiating. So what are we going to have in practice? What Lavrov has been telling us for months now, the war will be solved in the battlefield.
Yeah.
The thing, when and how. It could last years, in fact, or it could last only 2026. It depends on how fast the Ukrainian armed forces will crumble. There's no guarantee that they will crumble very, very fast. And even with this very dodgy 90 billion euro, 0% interest grant, not loan to them, this means the machine can keep on going for at least, assuming that they have the 90 billion, assuming that they're going to get the 90 billion from European banks with extortionate interest rates. This could last 2026, 2027. So it's a guarantee that the war will go on for another 2 years. And with the Ukrainians hitting assets inside the Russian Federation. They have already started, and now it's going all over the place. Ships in the Black Sea, Novorossiysk, a general car bomb. Just a general in Moscow. It's total terror, which is the only thing that Kiev knows how to do, advised by the MI6, of course. So this will continue. The Russians are getting ready for it. They know that, as you explained very, very well, this will never go through the Senate in the U.S. Whatever is written on it.
Yeah, no, they've got to have the only agreement that Russia could count on would be something that is ratified in a treaty. And
is ratified in the treaty, exactly.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Well, I said, but even with a ratified treaty, as we've seen with the anti-ballistic missile treaty and with the intermediate nuclear forces treaty, those agreements, U.S. just walked away from them.
Of course.
So that I do think one thing that's afoot right now is that the Russians are hoping that they can at least engage enough U.S. businesses in economic interchange with Russia that it'll make it potentially, if too costly for the United States to try to continue the conflict, or to create economic incentives for closer cooperation. But
this is where both oligarchies meet, right, Larry? The American oligarchy and the Russian oligarchy, they want to continue to do business with each other like they used to in the past.
Yeah.
And we can reasonably say that this is the only group that is actively supporting Trump. Once again, follow the money, and it's all about business.
Yeah.
And the Russians even floated the idea that they would be welcome for joint projects in the Arctic. This is something extremely sensitive because the development of the Arctic and the Far East of Siberia is a matter of national security for Russia. Are they going to have American companies involved? Wow. This would be an enormous concession, in fact, if that ever happened. When you see those forums in Vladivostok, and you have provincial governors from Murmansk, for instance, they got Rosatom building a fleet of new nuclear icebreakers, all the money that is pouring from Moscow and from the provinces to develop all the provinces in the Arctic and East. This is a development project for Russia according to sustainable development vectors that interest Russians, not necessarily the Americans. So if the Russians make this concession, then we can, wow, this would be enormous.
All right, folks, hold on just a second. We've got something important to share with you. First off, a big thank you for all your incredible support. Our team's been putting in the hours, really working hard to bring you insightful guests, new and improved formats, solid, high-quality analysis every week. Our next goal, hitting that 100,000 subscriber mark and getting that silver button. Let's make it happen together. Every like, comment, share, and subscription truly helps us grow and keep improving. All right then, let's get back to the video.
Of course, again, you got to step back and say, okay, what does the United States bring to that table? I mean, they don't have any icebreakers, Which
definitely not.
Last I checked, I think icebreakers are sort of a critical component of being able to get into the Arctic, which to me, it looks like the United States wants to sort of attach itself to Russia and to get there, because without Russia, they ain't getting there.
Exactly. You have to depend for 365 days, which is what they are actually working on, the Northern Sea route, which the Chinese poetically call the Arctic Silk Road. This is, without Russian icebreakers, forget it. And Russia is investing a lot of funds on that because this is one of the connectivity corridors of the future. The South Koreans know it. The Chinese know it. So when you see them discussing at the Vladivostok Forum, like last time, or only 4 months ago, you have delegations from South Korea, you have delegations from China, you even have delegations from Southeast Asians who are thinking of starting to use the North Sea route when it's fully operational. Well, this is not exactly a connectivity corridor that interests the Americans, because it's a competition with the Suez Canal, a direct competition with the Suez Canal. Just like the other BRICS connectivity corridor, the North-South transportation corridor, Russia, Iran, and India. So the Russians I would say Putin and the Security Council, they have to evaluate very carefully what kind of joint projects the Americans will be interested in.
Yeah, I mean that. I'm not trying to provoke war and keep the conflict going, but I don't. If I was advising Putin and Lavrov and the crew, I'd just say there is no viable path forward to to work with the United States as a legitimate partner, because the United States continues with its covert programs to subvert Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan. They have not got it out of their head that they just want to live with Russia as a friend.
True.
It is the United States, as it is currently constituted, I think, is incapable of that kind of friendship relationship that Russia has with China, as an example.
No, absolutely impossible, Larry, because the Russia-China strategic partnership, it's strong on so many levels, not only personal in terms of the relationship between Putin and Xi, which is very close. Their ministries, which work in tandem in many, many important issues. At the BRICS table, at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization table, at the UN Security Council. It's an extremely sophisticated partnership on every level.
Right.
And that explains, for instance, one of the takeaways is how the Russians paid attention to how the Chinese developed their far west, Tibet and Xinjiang, starting 25 years ago. This is exactly what they're doing with their far east.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same drive, integrating federal funds, provincial funds, and developing a space that is, for most Russians, is cut off from all the Russians who live in the European part of Russia, for instance.
Yeah.
And in China, it worked. When I was in Xinjiang 4 months ago, I saw a lot of families from the East who were discovering Xinjiang. They had never been to the west of China, and they were like, wow, the infrastructure is amazing. It's developed according to Eastern Seaboard China standards. The Russians want to do the same thing in the Arctic and in the Far East.
Yeah.
So that's why the Americans are jumping in, even with some selected projects. It doesn't make sense at all.
Well, you know, the American perception, there's this mentality. Think of China as this handsome movie star kind of guy, and think of Russia as this short, fat woman. The West says, the West looks at it, there's no way that the relationship's going to work out because the guy is too good looking and too dominant. This other, this fat chick is just hanging on. They don't realize that actually that is a false representation, that Russia's not the fat chick. Russia is actually has its own attractive qualities, and the West is banking. I can't emphasize this enough. They're particularly in the United States, they're banking on the fact that there's no way that Russia can have this kind of relationship with China. In fact, we're in denial. We keep no, that's not happening. They're not that close. We can split them off.
Because they don't understand that this has been going on for even before Xi came to power. But after he came to power, which was 13 years ago, it only developed steadily full time.
Yeah.
For all of us who spend most of our time in Asia, that's my case. I followed this thing in detail. At the time, I was still partially in Hong Kong and also in Thailand and also going to China a lot. This was the pre-COVID era.
Right.
You could see that these things were moving extraordinarily fast after the start of the New Silk Roads officially by Xi Jinping, which was 12 years ago. And then this was 2013. 2014 was Maidan. And after that, the Russians start thinking that we need to get closer to China. And that was, let's say, 2016, 17, 18, 19, the pre-COVID era. They got really, really close together. And then, before the SMO, they were already organizing their foreign policy in tandem. So when the Russians sent those famous letters that you know very, very well, December 2000, talking about indivisibility of security, they had already talked to China about that, because the indivisibility of security concerned Eurasia, the post-Soviet space, and Europe.
Right.
So it also concerns China. It also concerns China globally, right? And then the SMO. After the SMO, of course, they got even closer because Putin made a deliberate effort, we could say probably week after week, to convince Xi Jinping and the Politburo of the reasons for the SMO. In the beginning, the Chinese, obviously, they did not agree with it. They saw it through the very Chinese lens of infringement of sovereignty. But when they got the fine print from Putin directly of why the SMO had to start, then they started to understand it. And you could see that in the analysis of some of the top academics in China, from the China Academy of Social Sciences, Fudan University, etc. You could see that they got the message.
Mm-hmm. Well,
this means that the top got the message, and then everybody else got the message.
Do you pinpoint the? I look at it and think that the real shift came. Was it January 2023, February, when Putin and Xi went to Moscow, and they had that.
Yes. Oh man, we were there. Oh, Larry, that when he actually said at the last minute, when Putin was taking him to his limo outside of the Kremlin.
Yeah.
This is something that Xi Jinping had already said before, but only in China. So nobody outside of China knew about it. And you know how you could find out? When they start publishing, in fact, when they published Xi Jinping's book, The Modernization of China. I bought this book a few months ago in Beijing. And when I started reading, I said, wow, he was already talking about changes we have not seen in 100 years. A few years ago, way before he told Putin face to face. You know, the Chinese, they don't do anything gratuitously.
Yeah.
Everything has a motive, and everything is choreographed, in minute detail. So obviously he chose the absolute exact top moment. There were cameras around, there were microphones open. The last thing he said to Putin, he said that we are witnessing changes that we have not seen in 100 years. But he also said, now we are in the driver's seat. Paraphrasing.
Yeah.
Okay. That sets the stage for not only for the rest of the decade, but for the next few decades.
Well, I've been getting the question on several different podcasts about, well, what about Europe? And so I'm going to give you my general response, and you can critique it, tell me I'm wrong, or amplify. I said, Europe is no longer relevant. Europe offers nothing. There's nothing the United States needs from Europe. There's nothing Russia needs from Europe. The era in which Europe was the center of industrial activity in the 19th century, when it was the center of science and technology, 19th century, with the 20th being this transition with the collapse of their empires. And so now Europe is in the position of trying to stay relevant, and they're not relevant anymore. Now they're potentially malevolent. They can cause some harm and some damage, as we're seeing the UK do with these, terrorist attacks against and sabotage attacks against Russia. But those are always a manifestation of weakness, not of strength. Am I being too extreme on this, or?
On the contrary, you're being even very diplomatic, Larry.
Look, me? Come on.
Well, I have been very privileged since late November. I have been almost everywhere in Italy for 3.5 weeks. I started in Venice, and now I am in Palermo. So this is literally north to south. And most of the important places in between, Friuli, Piemonte, Toscana, Umbria, Rome, of course, Napoli. And then I took the Maritime Silk Road from Napoli to come to Palermo. And yes, literally, you take a ferry and you think that you are in the Silk Road. But in the Mare Nostrum, as in the old Roman Empire. And of course, the food is much better. The food is absolutely ridiculously good. Well, and I've been talking to a great deal of progressive minds across Italy from different regions with different realities, but there is several consensus. Number one, Italy cannot go anywhere if it continues to be a NATO colony. And you see that it's a NATO colony from the bases in Friuli near Slovenia and Austria, some of them underground, like my friends were pointing to me. Look, we have underground NATO bases a little bit everywhere, underground lily pads everywhere. Right here to Sicily, where you have Sigonella, which is a major NATO aerial base, especially. And even, Larry, yesterday I learned an absolutely crazy story. It concerns a very small civilian airport in a small town in southern Sicily. You know what the locals discovered one day? That there were a lot of Ukrainians around parading expensive cars with Ukrainian license plates. And there was a plan to transform that civilian airport into a Ukrainian base, not even NATO base, but Ukrainian. And they discovered this by accident. Obviously, then they mobilized themselves, and at least for the moment, this Ukrainian base won't exist. But NATO nowadays is completely out of control in most NATO countries. We know about Romania, of course. We know about Germany, but especially here in Sicily. And of course, when you are in the heart of the old Roman Empire, when you are in the heart of the Renaissance, when you are here in Sicily, which is the multicultural, multinodal civilization by definition. Everybody came to Sicily in Sicilian history. It's absolutely outstanding. And of course, in the middle of the Mediterranean, they are smack in the middle of the old Roman Empire, Mare Nostrum. So obviously they say, look, we all know what the state we have been reduced to. And also we all know how hard it's going to be for us to climb out of this hole, in fact. So this means a new grassroots style of Italian politics, uniting provinces, regions. Then you get to parliament. Then you have to turn parliament upside down. Then you have to build your own media until you get to Brussels. And then you start to try to change Brussels from the inside. But they look at it and they said, oh, it's an enormous challenge, but we have to do it. And considering our glorious past, they are the civilization state of the West by definition. Right. Nothing beats Italy in the history of the West. Nothing. So they have the brains, they have the knowledge, they have the culture, and they have the drive to pull it off. It's going to be a generational thing. One, maybe two, but at least they're already starting. And when I was talking to my German friends, some of them do the back and forth between Germany and Italy. They said, in Germany, people don't even know what you're talking about. In terms of resisting, not only that Black Rock chancellor, but resisting Brussels, essentially. This latest push to get the fake 90 billion euro grant to Ukraine, two Germans were ahead of the whole thing, Merz and von der Leyen. So this was pushed by two Germans. This is something that around France and around here in Italy, people scrutinize like this, And another theme of our conversations. Do they ever learn from history? They're rearmed. They're going to try to do it all over again. And people are completely puzzled.
Well, I was just saying, except this time, they don't have the industrial base.
They don't have the industrial base.
And they don't have any kind of unified political support behind it. If anything, it seems that the average person in these different countries, whether we're talking France, UK, Germany, they're opposed to it, not embracing it.
Of course. And that leak was more or less confirmed about the final decision when they saw two or three of the leaders saw by themselves that if they confiscated the already stolen Russian assets, this would be the end of the financial system of Europe as a whole and of the euro as a currency. It was Macron who went against MERS at the last minute because somebody at Ministry of Finance in Bercy in Paris obviously picked up the phone, called Macron and said, look, if you want to destroy France, you're going to vote for this thing.
Yeah. Well, in fact, let's say that's the only thing that's left for Europe is, or a particular city of London as a financial center. However, the transformation of BRICS that we've witnessed now over the started going into the fourth year is, I think, completely unexpected by the West, and may have even surprised both Putin, Xi, Modi at how important it is becoming. What do you think?
Even more, Larry, in fact, this has been a concerted effort, especially by Russia and China. And this year, this Putin visit to India, this was instrumental to finally solidify the hard node of BRICS. These three guys are the hard node of BRICS, as we all know. Until a few months ago, many of us were saying, no, maybe we should start thinking in terms of Iran or Indonesia as the I in BRICS and not India. But this visit, which was prepared, months of preparation on both sides, and the fact that Putin and Modi finally together, they can project to the whole global south. Look, this is a very, very strong partnership, as strong as the Russia-China partnership.
Right.
So this hard node of BRICS is back in the game, and in a sense that it's poetically is very, very nice because it's the original Primakov triangle. When Primakov elaborated it in the late 1990s. Now, the original RIC, the Primakov triangle, was Russia, India, and China. This was the embryo of the idea of BRICS that happened much later. When Jim O'Neill came up with this acronym, BRIC, in the beginning, Jim O'Neill had studied Primakov. Basically, he was copying Primakov's concept. But because he's American, because he was in Wall Street, English language and all that, immediately it went all over. And obviously, Lavrov profited from it. It's a very interesting story because both Lavrov and Celso Amorim, the Brazilian foreign minister, they tell more or less the same story of how BRIC came up. They were in New York. They were discussing with each other, and Lavrov said, look, we have this RIC thing, and you have something with South Africa. I don't remember how the acronym at the time, but it was a cooperation mechanism between Brazil and South Africa. Why don't they put it all together in the same basket? So they both agreed to it, and this is how BRICS actually happened. The beautiful story. It's a beautiful story. These two foreign ministers with a vision for the future, right?
Well, what was sort of shocking, what I think really accelerated the process was in February, early March 2022, when they banned Russia from SWIFT. Now, calling most people don't appreciate that SWIFT is an oxymoron because it's anything but fast. It's not swift. It's slow. Because
I used it, Larry. I know how slow it can be.
yeah. It's an email system. Let's call it a legacy email system between banks. And if your message gets lost in spam, you're going to be waiting several days to get your transfer. And so here's China now with the cross-border interbank payment system, the SIPS, which is digital, which takes seconds. So all of
7 seconds max, exactly.
Now, so we've gone from a horse and carriage, that's still where Brussels is with SWIFT, to Lamborghini is BRICS, and they're not going back. In fact, I thought the funniest thing was when that 28-point peace plan came out, and supposedly one of the incentives was, hey, Putin, sign on to this, we'll let you back into the G7. And Putin was like, why would I want to be a member of that group?
Exactly. Who cares? Who cares? And go back to G7, go back to SWIFT. They're already on another completely different ball game.
Yeah.
Not only Russia, but Eurasia as a whole. Not to mention everything that BRICS is testing in their BRICS labs, alternative payment systems, settlements, everything. So soon we're going to have a basket of different mechanisms, which in a matter of a few years, maybe until the end of this decade, they will merge, and then we'll have a completely different financial architecture.
Yes.
All across the global south, especially for the global south. Obviously, Europe won't be part of it, and obviously North America won't be part of it. But for the global south, which global south is more than 85% of a global population. That's it. That's what matters.
Well, and that, in fact, most people don't realize that in the aftermath of World War II, it took about 3 to 4 years to erect what we now know as the international financial system. And
exactly.
Were it not, when the history of this period is written, were it not for the West provoking Russia into having to start the special military operation in Ukraine, BRICS might never really have come to full fruition. But the reaction of the West to Russia and the continued threats from the West against China, I think, finally awakened them to we've got to have an alternative, and that the icing was put on the cake when the United States tried to bully Modi, and Modi basically said, "Nah, I'm with Putin.
I'm with bye."
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, listen. Go ahead.
The key moment, Larry, was the BRICS summit in Kazan last year.
Yeah.
This was the beginning of the big change. And it was reconfirmed by the SEO summit in Tianjin a few months ago in China. These two multilateral organizations are at the forefront of organizing all this new world, let's put it this way. It's you need a 10,000 Sisyphus, pushing the big ball up the hill, but they already started, and they're going to do it because they have support from the rest of the global south. You still have 40 countries that want to be members of BRICS. Early this week at the Eurasia Economic Union forum in St. Petersburg, guess what happened? Indonesia now has a free trade agreement with the Eurasia Economic Union. Cuba was there, and there's going to be a lot of extra investment from the Eurasia Economic Union in Cuba, and others want to become. We want a free trade agreement with you guys as well.
Yeah,
which a great deal.
It's the future. The future. And people are going to line up, and I think the United States is going to awaken too late and realize, wait a second, we forgot to get on board the train. So.
But the high-speed train is already down there, over there.
Oh, brother. All right, my friend. Hey, listen, I just so deeply appreciate your friendship and enjoy it when we're able to get together and chat in person. But I appreciate you taking your time to do this, and I wish you and your family a Merry Christmas.
Same to you, Larry, and I'm sure we're going to meet in Moscow soon. Yes. Live, of course. And it's been a pleasure. These conversations are absolutely priceless, and best to you and to our audience from one of the multipolar poles of the world, the great, absolutely out of sight Sicily.
Yeah, and I love the background. It looks very Italian, very Roman.
It's Baroque. We are in the 18th century here. Seriously.
All right, my friend. I'm going to hit the stop button on the recordings. This marks the final episode for 2025 of Countercurrents. I can't think of a better way to end it than with Pepe. Well, actually, if the idea would be to have Pepe, Alistair Crook, Mohammed Marandi, the big three. That would be pretty special. But I thank you for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps build the channel. And We'll see you in 2026. Happy New Year.